Right next door to the Pogue, the former pub which was turned into rubble by the blast. The GUI has not been able to get into the area, but from the pictures he's seen, he's not optimistic.
If they don't deem these buildings or houses as safe, who's going to insure them? And if they can't get insurance, then the next phone call is going to be the financial institution. Who's going to finance a building that's uninsurable?
The scene is still blocked off, still no answers from the province. A lunch delivered to frontline workers as the community continues to come together.
People tell you we're such a small-knit community and we're pretty tough. I mean, unfortunately, we're not getting the outside help that we are looking for from our government, but our counselors have been fabulous. They're pulling for us. I'm part of the BIA too, so we're really pushing and really trying to get something done about the situation.
We are mourning for our community. We're mourning for our village. It is a great loss.
Hillary Hyatt is also on the outside looking in. Her small restaurant was spared closure the first couple of times the town center was evacuated. While their return is still up in the air, she wonders what it will be like when they can go back.
I'm sure everyone for a little while is going to be a little uneasy whether it's safe to be there.
The future of the town core in this area has also come up for debate.
There's been talk about having to relocate our entire downtown core. It's heartbreaking, it's unnerving, everyone's kind of on eggshells, but I am confident that we will get through this. We will rise. We are very resilient. Like I said, small town, big heart. We'll figure it out and we'll get there.
Now, I did ask both those business owners if they would consider legal action, and both of them said yes. And I did also hear from a law firm in Windsor that told me that they have heard from affected residents and they are considering a potential class action lawsuit. Chris.
Thanks, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight in Wheatley. They continue to be at risk of another explosion with gas levels still too high for people to investigate what triggered Thursday's blast. The province has sent people on site to help understand the current risk. Chatham-Kent staff met with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Solicitor General's officials this weekend looking for ways to get more people on site to figure out what exactly to do next. They can't clear the scene until they get safe readings from what's left in the rubble.
Obviously, you don't want to go in there and spark something by trying to move concrete or something and having another explosion, basically. So they have hired a company to come in and try to find the leak and get it fixed up. So we're hoping that it actually happens.
The Ministry of Natural Resources has said it's working to find the leak. I've asked to speak with the minister about what's been done to keep Wheatley safe, but Minister Greg Rickford wasn't available Friday or today. We'll keep asking. Now, when it comes to what help there is for homeowners, an insurance expert says you should call your policy provider as soon as you can. Generally speaking, explosion damage is covered by standard home and business insurance policies. These are some of the perils that we hear about in the news and in the media, and these are things that are covered by standard policies. In Canada, there's no such thing as a reference to an act of God in an insurance policy. There are usually peril specific, so things like fire and water damage and explosions and hail and wind, these are commonly covered under standard home insurance policies in Ontario and across Canada.
What should people do if they're outside of that evacuation zone, but they're just worried about long-term effects that may have happened to their house?
You're not able to get back in immediately, but when it's safe to do so, take a real close look at your property. Document any damage that may be there and initiate that claims process. Many times the insurance companies or the adjuster will send out experts to take a real close look and determine the extent of the damage and the proper way to complete the necessary repairs.
A Windsor man frustrated with COVID-19 testing rules is calling on the government to let more people get tested. As Windsor Essex, the case rate rapidly increases, he says it should be easier to find out if you're spreading the virus. CBC's Katerina Georgieva has more.
Raymond Quenville came here over the weekend for a COVID-19 test, but he was turned away.
Can't you just put my mind at ease and just let me through to get the test?
He was at a small gathering last week. He found out after the host had been in close contact of someone with COVID-19. But the host didn't want to get tested, leaving Quenneville in limbo.
I isolated myself at home.
Even though he's double vaccinated, he wanted to know he wasn't spreading the virus. He'd already been turned away at a pharmacy before trying the assessment center, where he was directed back to the pharmacy.
No one's on the same page anymore.
But as a contact of a contact, he doesn't match the criteria to get tested at the center. Those guidelines set by the province include having COVID-19 symptoms, a direct exposure to a positive case, living or working in an outbreak setting. Rapid screening is available at pharmacies, regular tests too, if you're asymptomatic, an essential worker, or Indigenous. The health unit says Quenneville should have been able to get a test that way.
So it's really, sometimes it's about the language and what you say when you go. So someone who is a contact of a contact really isn't a contact. That's not actually a thing. And until you've been identified as a high-risk contact.
Quenneville says it shouldn't be this confusing, but there are other avenues to get a test even still, though it'll cost you.
There are private labs in Windsor. Most focus on those who need a test for upcoming travel, but some will test non-travelers. The price tag starts at $75 for an antigen test. PCR tests, $200 and up. Quenneville still finds the situation baffling after being turned away.
I thought we were here to try to help keep the public healthy and protected. And for them to let me walk away, I just didn't understand that.
All this as cases continue to increase in the fourth wave. Windsor-Essex saw an increase of 213 cases since Friday. Things like contact tracing are becoming more and more challenging for health unit staff. Now, as for testing, Quenneville would like to see that criteria expanded so that folks in his shoes are able to know whether or not they're spreading the virus, even if they are fully vaccinated. CBC did reach out to the provincial government for comment, but has not yet heard back. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
Children under 17 will have their own urgent clinic if there's a COVID outbreak at area schools.
The public health unit notifies us when there's a school cohort dismissed or a daycare cohort dismissed. They let us know real time how many people to expect and when they're going to require testing. So we're able to scale up as needed based on the exposures that are going on in the community. So if we know, like for example, 25 kids are dismissed today from whatever school and that they're due for testing on September 3rd, we will make sure we have enough spots to accommodate them on top of our normal demand.
Officially starts tomorrow at Windsor Regional Hospital, the clinic opening to handle the recent surge in children and youth that are seeking medical attention. Likely ongoing cases as school returns during this pandemic. Scary moments at Yorkdale Mall in Toronto yesterday when shots rang out inside the shopping center just after 3:30 in the afternoon. The mall was locked down for several hours. Customers and staff trapped inside as police investigated the scene. Zayn Ismail from LaSalle was in the mall when the shots were fired.
Really confused at first because people were running, everyone's wearing their mask still because it's full on COVID, and I felt really confused, and then I felt really afraid because I wasn't really sure what we were running from until we, found out a few minutes later just by what was already being posted on social media. That I really remember was finding this door that said employees only. I'm like, well, we're going to go through it and see where it goes, and that's what ultimately led us down below the mall, which led us to this massive corridor that ultimately let us out. Reports come in. The crew that I was with, we were trying to be somewhat quiet as we walked out, and I did post a video about it. And the gentleman that was part of our group that was kind of leading, reminded us to stay a little bit quiet. And we kept sort of looking around the corridor and upcoming corners and upcoming intersections just to make sure that anyone that we would see coming didn't appear to be a threat. But yeah, definitely scary. I was actually, and I guess we had no way of knowing, but we were really worried that it was some massive terrorist event or something like that, where there are multiple shooters. And certainly as I move forward, I won't be going to another mall or major sporting event or heck, even an airplane without really thinking through how am I going to get out of here if there's a problem? Because it just happened out of the blue. No one plans this, right?
I'm glad he was able to get out safely and leave. He was leaving just as police were arriving. Now, they say that they arrested one suspect a short distance from the mall minutes after the shooting, still searching for a second suspect. There's a rally today at Kennedy High School. Students and parents trying to save the football season. Both Catholic school boards and the English public said that last week football would not be returning this year. But as Dale Molnar reports, there might be an alternative in the works.
Bring back football! Bring back football!
The students and parents protested outside Kennedy Collegiate this morning. Students lost a season last year due to COVID, so if they lose this season, it may affect their chances of moving on to bigger things.
Yeah, I missed out my grade 11 year, and that's another big year as far as recruitment goes, so I'd hope to be able to get a grade 12 year, and to not play it is kind of just heartbreaking.
It means out a lot of things, because I won't be able to practice, won't be able to get a scholarship, won't be able to do anything, so I can't really pursue my career if I can't play.
In a written statement last week, school boards said there's not enough time to get helmets certified for safety, but there was no explanation given as to why it didn't happen earlier this year.
I think it's because they've been looking for a way out for a while, and now that everything just got more expensive, this is their way out, and if it goes away now, it may never come back.
Parent Gino Facca has tried to convince Public Education Director Aaron Kelly there's still time.
We can get the helmet certified, we can get all the other reasons that you've put on paper, we can get those all cleared up and still have some sort of football season this year.
But Facca says Kelly told him they would not likely change their positions. The Essex Ravens, however, are putting together travel teams for junior varsity and varsity age players so they can get qualified for university football.
We're going to be 2 years out now, not playing football. I mean, these kids, if they don't get filmed this year, they won't have any film since grade 9, 10. It's very difficult to send that to an NC2A school and try and get opportunities. And let alone a Canadian school. Like, they're just, there's a lot of money for kids on the line here.
The Ravens are first hoping the school board officials will change their minds. Neither the English Catholic or English public officials would comment. CBC News did not hear back from the French Catholic Board.
The parents and students plan to bring their protest to the English Catholic School Board meeting tomorrow night and the Public English School Board meeting on Wednesday night. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
One of Belle River's colorful characters passed away last week. Tommy the Turkey was known for his run-ins with cars, leaving a lasting impression on a community that cared.
Grabbed my drone real quick and I took a drone video and I had posted it online and it blew up and went viral. And I just captioned it, I named him Tommy the Turkey, kind of brought this turkey character to life.
Well, I basically just ran into him at the parking lot at work, and he seemed pretty docile usually, and then he liked to hang out in the road, which was a little dangerous.
I think he was more of a traffic mascot more than anything, just to give people some notice that there are other people on the road other than just aggressive drivers. He was an asset to the neighborhood, and he's going to be missed.
I mean, yeah, there's some people that are really miserable about him and everything because he was kind of a jerk sometimes, but that's what made everybody love him. He didn't care. He did whatever he wanted, when he wanted, and those of us just kind of worked around him. When I, dug a lot, he was a very, very big boy, and put the stones in around it, and we put some shells to remind him of Belle River with the beach and the beach stones, and he's got some lights, and we just made him a sign. He can't just be disposed of. He was a citizen here. It was his Belle River, let's face it.
The dude with the attitude. We take a live look outside, the sun shining on Windsor. Nick Sirkovich joins us next. A live look at the weather. One of the most powerful hurricanes to hit the U.S. mainland is now weakened to a tropical storm, but Ida leaves behind downed power lines, thousands of flooded homes, and a swath of destruction across Louisiana and Mississippi. Ida slammed into Louisiana yesterday as a Category 4 hurricane, winds topping 240 kilometers an hour. The storm surges were strong enough to briefly reverse the flow of the Mississippi River. It knocked out electricity for nearly 2 million customers across 2 U.S. states. Rescuers using boats and helicopters to get more people trapped by floodwaters out of that zone. Dozens of shelters housing more than 2,000 evacuees, but that number could grow. Louisiana is dealing with hospitals overwhelmed by a recent surge in COVID-19 cases. There are now worries that people being forced out of homes and into close quarters are just going to increase the spread. As we bring in Nick now, it's just terrible to see those images out of the south when you look at what we've been dealing with the last bit, the heat wave, perspective for everything.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you've got a combination of the heat wave. Of course, we're dealing with COVID. You've also got the storm surge that you talked about, reversing the flow of the Mississippi. I mean, that's incredible power. And now what we're watching is actually the storm system track northward. And while the winds begin to die off, we're looking at heavy rainfall that's actually continuing all the way up toward Washington, D.C., areas in Pennsylvania, and out toward New England as well. So we're going to see a swath of heavy rainfall and potentially flooding across a large portion of the United States, the eastern portion of the United States. Of course, most of the damage happening on coastal sections. But nonetheless, Ida is still wreaking havoc across the U.S. And I'm going to show you how that impacts our weather coming up here in just a second. For now, I want to talk about the temperatures first. Of course, we had a very hot, muggy weekend. We were sitting at temperatures that were around about 30 degrees, but with the humidex, it felt like 40, and we had those heat warnings in effect. Today, the temperatures not far off of those that we had yesterday, but the humidex quite a bit lower, 31, so a lot more manageable. Not much to speak of in terms of cloud cover out there today. Of course, we had those massive storms that passed through southwestern Ontario yesterday, and that ushered in a little bit of a different weather pattern, which has sort of cooled things down a bit. Now, back to Ida. This is the storm system right here. As it tracks up toward the east, it actually gets picked up in the upper level flow, and it goes through what's called extratropical transition, essentially becoming sort of a mid-latitude storm system. But it still packs a punch with its rainfall in some areas in the U.S., still likely to see 100, 200 millimeters of rain depending on where they are. For us, though, in southern Ontario, it's actually being held south here. So we'll see some spillover cloud cover into Tuesday and Wednesday, but by and large, it stays dry across southern Ontario and certainly in our forecast region. Not seeing much of the effects of it. 17 degrees tonight, tomorrow up to 27 degrees in Windsor. Again, not much to speak of in terms of the humidex. And there's a look at the forecast for the next 5. Lots of sunshine and temperatures about seasonal. So, big change.
It's looking pretty, man.
I know.
That's nice. No raindrops, no nothing in there, eh?
I know. It's like a perfect forecast.
This is good. I send off to summer, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
Now, on Sunday, there was a first in Windsor, a butterfly festival. We'll take you there next. The Taliban says it now has full control of the Kabul airport. The planned U.S. withdrawal triggered days of panic among those trying to flee the nation and its new leaders. Now neighboring countries are grappling with thousands of desperate Afghans turning up at their borders. As Susan Ormiston reports, the day began with another attack at the airport while the U.S. military was still in control.
The U.S. intercepted a rocket barrage over Kabul airport this morning. As many as 5 rockets were launched, they say from a car possibly. A car was found with 6 rocket tubes in the back. Shrapnel from those rockets fell on nearby neighborhoods instead. The evacuation did continue at Kabul airport with, we're told, planes leaving every 20 minutes this morning. And yesterday, the Taliban assured 100 countries, including Canada, that it would agree that foreign nationals and Afghans holding onward visa authorization, that they could leave the country even after the U.S. departs. But it's unclear how, because the Kabul airport is closed to commercial traffic. No planes going in and out yet. So the exit would be by road. And we are seeing tens of thousands of Afghans trying to leave in the last week through Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, but getting stopped at Pakistan's border in the south of Kandahar, at Spin Boldak, and also to the west of Islamabad. Pakistan has closed its borders mostly to Afghan nationals because it has 1.4 million refugees here already, and it doesn't want more, tens of thousands more, to come into Pakistan. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Islamabad.
Windsor's first butterfly festival released dozens of homegrown monarch butterflies into the wild. CBC's Mike Evans dropped by the festival to see how it all crystallized.
According to the experts, there's only 1 to 3% that will actually make it to the adult stage, like the flying stage. The ants, the spiders, wasps, and there's all kinds, another dozen of predators. They're all after their eggs. We prefer to take the egg, bring it indoor into an enclosure, and give it a chance to become a butterfly.
How many monarchs have you raised from eggs and released into the wild?
Personally, we did about 2,000 in the last 3 years, but I've been giving away many eggs and caterpillars to other members that have joined our Facebook group.
Doing monarchs for about 3 years now, and I just found it remarkable to see this little critter crawling along the floor and then turning into something so beautiful in the end. I mean, yes, the farmers, they're doing what they can to give us food by doing their insecticides and that, and the butterflies are eating them and consequently killing the butterflies. So it's up to us to try and help rectify this and bring the numbers back. This year I released 125 plus. I lost about 50 or 60 due to some insect getting into the chrysalis. That really hurt. And I've got maybe about another 40 at home.
Well, what do you think it is about monarchs in particular that make people fall in love with them so much?
They're so delicate. They put up with all kinds of elements from Mother Nature, and they can take it. They're so beautiful, so graceful, so colorful. It's like I said, once you start, you're not going to stop. My husband said, well, I don't think it's such a big deal. And then when he got here, he says, oh my God, he says, that many people are interested? I said, yeah. I said, it's not a fad, just it hooks you.
Just a delightful look at some beautiful butterflies. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.